Greetings everyone, here's Lodrik, and this is the Game 1 the Pacific Advanced Edition. This is my play-by-email match against Xargun, and Xargun is just now on vacation for 1 week roughly, and this means the game is on pause, and so I have some time to maybe talk about stuff. I will not really talk too much in the standard turns, because they are not really so game related. It's all more like background information and maybe tactics or something like this. So this is now because we are at 15th of April and I don't have an old file, or I could open an old file, but I also just finished my shuffling of my pilots around the map because I had now time to do this. It's really time consuming and micromanagement, and I think you can play the game without it, but it's really only if you want to get the last 1 or 2% of efficiency out of the Japanese side, and you can do this, or better must do this. So I will not talk about the turn or about the situation. It's really only if you, this is scenario 1, so it's really the close to historical amount of troops or units and whatever you have. In scenario 2, of course, it's much easier. You get a bunch of additional army forces, destroyers for the navy, and a lot of air force power. So in this scenario 2, I think it's not really too important to do it. You can do it depending how strong is your opponent and how well experienced you are. So what I run, or what I want to say maybe, is now how I build up my air force, or how I organize my air force. So you can see this is Japan. I have here air base here in the north. This is more or less my torpedo bombers. They can make torpedo attacks, plus therefore sub hunting, because Xargun had here always some subs. Now this last day is not more so much, so but I can train them, I can run them for torpedo attacks, or I can run them for what they did most of time is sub hunting. Not really sinking them, but maybe damage them and make it not so easy for him to pick my ships. Everyone knows this, I hope many know this. So oil storage has this special rule that 100 times the amount of your production, 1000 times the production is the maximum capacity. So again, you have your 30 oil production, so you have maximum of storage of 30,000 crude oil. So sooner or later you must always ship this oil back to Japan. So you cannot unlimited store it. And here is the big mines. So I call more or less all resources to this hex, so they flow automatically. You have always this demand, but you can also store them here. So I build up this port slowly but steadily. So I try to get this level 4 port. At the same time, I have here the same situation. I build up here the level 4 port. It's cheap because it's still in normal range and not additional ports. And then what I do is more or less I ship the resources only between these two guys. And then I can ship them from these two bases, or temporarily also from Sapporo to Japan. But normally this port is big enough. I still try to upgrade it to level 7. Then I have a capacity of I think 140,000 tons per day. Oh, 128,000. Oh no, this is a level 8 port. Okay. Level 7 would be a little smaller, so maybe 96,000. But 96,000 tons is load capacity, or port capacity is, I think, enough to transport all the resources I produce here in 1 day or 2 days to ship to Japan. But you can of course always ship here everything directly, but you have a longer line and more ways to intercept. These two ports have the advantage that you always stay in clear in shallow water. If you ship from Sapporo, you must always walk in this one, sail, cruise in this hex. So there's a potential submarine spot the allies can use. Of of course it's in range of any airbase. So Ominato need, of course, not only a big port, it also need a big airfield, because Ominato must have a strong potential airbase. So if there's allied activity, you must immediately send your air force here and strike out of this, if there are submarines or whatever arrive here, maybe in the late game. But so this is normally to only cover the north. This is a standard Fusan. This is normally the hex where you always call everything in. So I call here a lot of forces in, because you have a lot of forces here. It's also called everything else. I call more or less all the forces to this hex also because it gives me a lot of engineers. Now I finished the construction of port 8 and airfield 8. I don't need them more, but later I maybe will buy out here some equipment. And then I have them already in a port, a big port, and it's easily to ship them out from here. And I ship them always to Fukuoka. This is because it has level 10 port from the beginning of the game. And it is, there's a rail plus a highway. I mean, not a really good highway. There is a bottleneck, you can say that this is only a small rail, but it's enough to transport the resources over time to the main island, to Tokyo, Osaka. So you must use this port. This port is first a little smaller, and you could of course sail here around, but it's one hex more. This allows me more or less to have minefields, mines. So if there's ever an allied submarine trying to pass by here or attack me here, it has a high risk of a mine hit. And if you have a mine hit in this area, even if it's a weak mine 4 type mine, if there's flooding, that is dangerous for a submarine. You also can see that I have in every of these shallow water bases some patrol boat or a sub hunter, simply because shallow water is always a dead trap, I think, for a submarine. It's simply much easier to sink a submarine in shallow water than in deep water. Good. This is only for this Japanese industry stuff. I don't have really much more to talk about this, but for me, this is what many say, this Fusan stuff. I ship the resources out for Mosa, and I ship them to Amoy or Charmin, and from here I send them to Wenchao. And here's also oil you must ship out. This is the second base. You must ship out your oil, but this is smaller. Here's only 8, so you can have only 8,000 tons. So one small tanker is here enough. I keep here one small mini tanker, and once per week there's enough oil, and then I ship it to Wenchao. And over time, this oil will arrive in Fusan, and then I ship here also with 1 or 2 tankers oil and fuel to Japan. I keep always an eye on Port Arthur. Port Arthur is now nearly empty. It's the beginning of the game. You have here, I don't know, 1 million ton of oil, 1 million ton of fuel, and 1.5 million ton of resources. And you can see there's not more much left. Most of this is already now in Japan. Or I consume it somewhere else here in China. Or, mainland Asia. So what you also have to do is here's some resource bases here and the resource bases here, but they're not too special, so I don't make them non-stop, but I have some cargo ships, and then you always pick the resources up, bring them back to Japan, and once per week you do this, and then it's fine. With the Philippines, there's not really much value with the Philippines from industry point, but you have here a lot of bases, they're producing some resources. And so you have here's resource center 20. Cebu is a little damaged, I think. No, Cebu is okay, but the resources are mostly consumed by the light industry, so here's more supplies production. But you have more supplies, more resources. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 resource center. Plus here is Davao. There's also a small resource center, and somewhere is a big, this is 20. Yeah. So you have here also some resources. So I always pick them up normally. For some reason I try to force them, but most of the time the resources end always in Butuan. So I ship them from Butuan back to Manila. There's also a lot of resources, not a lot, but they stuck here, but slowly they also going to the north coast. I simply don't want to ship from Davao. I think it's inefficient. If I wait, I can get them here at the north coast. And all of those resources I always ship to Manila, because Manila is a super big port. I built them up to level 9, so max out. Simply because you get a lot of points, and Manila is a must-have. You must hold Manila. If you lose Manila, I think you lost the war. Once Manila, I mean, Manila and Formosa, they are both super important. Or you can never ship anything more to Japan or from Japan. So I ship normally always small cargo ships. And this is all shallow water, so it's hard for the submarines to attack here. Or if they try, you can normally take them on easily. And everything arrives in Manila, and then also once every 2 weeks, if I see here 100,000 resources stockpile, then I ship them normally always to Hong Kong. And from Hong Kong they're going to Busan and then back to Japan. So this is normally only, you can manage this in many ways. So I have also convoys going with resources to Surabaya. From Kendari I ship resources to Surabaya. You have here the oil. I normally ship the oil from Babo to Boela, and then from Boela I ship the oil directly to Vietnam, or I think up to now I ship them always to Palau Islands. Yeah. And then from here you can ship them back to Japan. It is a question of hexes and what is the distance. You have here 17 hexes direct, and then from here if you want to go to the shortest range, or if you go to Kobe, then it's number 38. Other option would be that you ship them normally from to this base. This is also the same distance. So normally it makes no sense to ship them first to here and then to Japan, because I do this already with resources. You produce here also some resources, not many, but some. So in the long run, I think I will change all. I ship them simply to Vietnam, and then they all arrive in Korea sooner or later, or they will be consumed on the way by industry, and then it's also fun. But let them stay here in stock will not really help me. So movement of resources is always important. And now it's easy time because there are no strong allied submarine. In 43, late in 44, maybe the allied submarine are everywhere, and then you cannot more ship anything. So set this up, I think, is early on. You can see that I also finished Tarakan is completely empty. I consume all of the fuel and oil somewhere else. Here's nothing because it's always go to Balikpapan. Balikpapan is a lot of oil, but I have my refineries are running at 100% capacity. This is simply stockpile. But I have here a production of 300, so I can have 300,000 stockpile. So the capacity is still only at, I still over 40% free storage here. And I think if this is full, it will stockpile here. And here I have additional 100,000 tons I can stockpile. Or I can ship them all for Surabaya or somewhere else. And then you have a lot of resources here. I bring them to Surabaya, and and then from Surabaya, then often up to now I make from both ports, but in the long run it's maybe easier. You can make from Surabaya or from Batavia, ship them to Singapore. I do both, but not up to now non-stop, because the amount of resources I have on Java is not so high. 20,000 I think is okay to keep them first year. 10,000 because I just finished loading, I think, a transport convoy. So I just sent something to Singapore, and I only need to send to Singapore because then after 1 or 2 weeks, it maybe need 2 weeks that these resources arrive in Korea, but sooner or later they will arrive. And Palembang is also, I have a lot of fuel here in Surabaya simply because, a lot of fuel is not for Japan. I mean, I have roughly 65,000 tons of fuel. That is enough to keep my West Australian Navy running so far. But Tarakan is empty, Balikpapan is empty, there's no fuel. Palembang is always full, and is because there's really no damage to the industry or repair everything. So I feel a lot of fuel non-stop, and I am not even fast enough to ship it non-stop to Singapore. So Singapore is slowly filling up with fuel, and I wait only that I get the damn production of the new airfield done. But I have only the minimum amount of engineers here. But once this is done, I have unlimited capacity for fuels, and I don't must really care too much. But I still must ship the fuel because in Palembang I don't need the fuel. And Medan is of course always also a big center, don't forget this. There's a lot of refineries plus oil and the resources. So this oil or fuel and resources from here I ship to Georgetown. So you can see there's also some convoys with tankers and with resources. And they're going in non-stop, and then automatically it will flow to the location I really need it. Yeah, so this is only, but I think this is all standard, nothing too special, but you set it up and then you let it run, and then I only wait that because this is now more secured area, I don't expect here enemy ships showing up. So I don't really have here a lot of escorts running. Sometimes, yes, but if I'm short distance or something like this, I have no escort. Because I don't really have the escort. But some are under construction. You can see here, this is the first generation of true escort ships coming online. And they are not super good. But this is this old second generation of destroyers. They are converted to escort ships. And they have only 800 tons. Also, this is normally really small ships, torpedo boats. And but they have a decent attack power for anti-submarine, and they have good anti-aircraft and far enough firepower to deal with any submarine. So they are purely escort ships, so anti-submarine ships, nothing more. But this is the type of ship I need to. The latest in 43, if the Mark 14s are better, to handle this in the long run, especially for tankers, I would say. Tankers are maybe the highest priority in the future. Good. So the other big topic, because it's maybe a little more special, is the air. No, oops, not this one. The air pool question. So you can see, because I use now the time to fix this completely, that I call out more Navy pilots from the school. You can see that the training class of 10 to 12 months is completely empty, and the class 7 to 9 is nearly half. So I call out here roughly 400, 500, 600 additional pilots, and I have them all on the map. And I never overstock a air wing. You can do this, you can I think bring 20 or 30% additional pilots in the air wing, but I do this only in very special cases. Most of the time I really keep the standard. So I really, if I have an air wing of 27, I keep 27 pilots inside. If you have more pilots, you can push them in, but I think you have a debuff in training efficiency. Overall, you maybe train more pilots, but the question is, you want to have the one pilot ready faster, or you want to have many pilots half ready. So in this way, I think it's you get a fully trained pilot faster in this way. Of course, if you have one airframe for one pilot is the best case, but it's hard to manage. So, and again, the game rules is more or less this. every airframe what is carrier capable and has not a fixed change of air size, like this one, you can change the air size with a carrier. So this one I cannot change because there is a fixed change in September 42. In September 42 this will change to 45. Sometimes you have a next change of size, but often only one, often not. So in September 42 this will change to 45, but I can put this air wing on a carrier and then change it to the size I want, if the carrier can support it. Good. So this is the first basic rule everyone must know, and so this will only work with carrier-based aircraft or with float planes. So this means more or less this kind of aircraft I cannot change. They are 45, they keep 45. This is 27, well it will change but I cannot change it. But this one you can see is 90. So this is a carrier-based, carrier-capable but not a carrier-trained pilot or air wing. I sent this air wing at the beginning, or I don't know, but I sent it to the Akagi, and the Akagi can form up to a size level 90 airframe. Then you have this of 90, you put 90 pilots in, 90 airframes in, and then you can train here a lot of pilots. And then you can see a lot of pilots training here. And because I shuffle all around, you can see that these pilots are all at level 70 air wing, air skill at least, or higher. So I let them train now Navy attack. Why I do this? Navy attack is for me the second class skill every fighter pilot for the Navy need to learn, because this is Navy attack, and this would be the Navy bomber. So this skill will be trained next, because I shuffle now all around. This is still not active. This is from last turn more or less the pilot. But I train this skill up, and for every 2 or 3 hits you have a Navy bombing skill, you get also a defense skill. And then you can see I want to reach the 70. And once a pilot is at 70, he's normally combat ready. So I normally try to have here like 70, experience around 60, and Navy bombing around 60. Then the pilot is ready and I move him to reserve, and then he can wait there. Or he's already in combat mission and dying. Then I need a new one. But that is normally what I do. So this is important to reform early on with Akagi. You can also use other carriers, but only Akagi have the ability to form 90 size air wings. No other carrier. So if you use Akagi early on and never reform your air wings, then you will never do this more. Everything else can only form 81 size carriers. If this is a big difference, I don't know, but it's simply a limitation. So you can also do this. This is more or less the standard, because this kind of airframes I will not produce, but I have some. So I have here also 90 and then give 12, because there is I don't know, you can make many calculations, but roughly I can say if I have at least 3 airframes, then the pilots are already training a little better than with one. Between 1 is the absolute minimum, or I don't know if you really need something, but with 3 you get more pilots trains per turn. Then with 9 and with 12 I think there's really a high efficiency that you get a lot of hits per day. But sometimes you don't get it together. You can see some pilots are getting the Navy torpedo attack skill, some they get a defense attack, so sometimes they get experience. So overall you can train pilots with this. This is of course much slower than with full air wing size, but it's working. So 9 to 90 is for me normally the minimum I try to achieve as soon as possible. 12 is normally often where I say it's enough first, I don't care much more. It's only a question of time, how fast is a pilot ready. So, and this I cannot change because it's a fixed change. And then you have this kind of stuff. If I don't have the airframe ready, you can only bring maximum 12 per turn, or every week maximum 12. So I will push all these airframes into this air wing sooner or later. This is a not more combat ready torpedo bomber. But I train here a lot of pilots, and yeah, I always try to finish one skill and then change something. A torpedo bomber for me need torpedo attack, navy bombing, and navy search. 3 skills. Then also the defense is at maximum and experience is over 60, and then they're really ready. But again, the main focus is here that you better reform all your airframes early on if it's possible. Again, only with capable, ready, or carrier capable airframes is this possible. And some, like this one, I could reform. There's no problem with this, but Akagi is busy. So maybe Akagi have an upgrade in July 42. So in July 42 I come back to Japan, and then I will check all the air wings, and if I can reform something I will do this. There's many airframes here I think I can reform. So you can see these guys. I just got them from some carriers, and I don't know more where they come from. Some I cannot change. So you can see here in July, if the Akagi is coming back to Japan, there's also a lot of air wings. This is all from the Junyo and Hiryo. They have all these air wings, they're all locked. I cannot change them, and I keep them all here in Japan for training. I put other pilots inside, and then I only train them. Because what I do, not only change, I change first the airframes or air size of the air wings. That is the first step. But what is more important is normally to optimize your carriers out of this. What you can do is do this. I have here now Junyo and Hiryo, and you can see they're starting with 3 air wings, 1 fighter, 1 torpedo, 1 dive bomber. I send this all back to Tokyo and let them train, and what I do is I'm using other airframes, all based on 90, then I break them down in ABC company. What you must do is, of course, not you break them down, then you have these 30 wings. Then often you must give them a new air commander, because often these air commanders are not so great, but that is only side note. But what is more important is you place them on a carrier, and then I fill them up, and then they try to reach the maximum what is possible. So you can see I have now here 60 airframes on this carrier, but this can normally handle only 53, but it's still orange, means they will operate normally. They only have, I think, I don't know if there's really a problem with this. So far I know orange is still only a warning, nothing more. So I have now here one torpedo bomber wing with 30 ready for action, and this one. What will normally happen is that sooner or later this 60 is normally too much, because I think so far I know the calculation is like your true number, and then you can get the addition, you can overload the carrier with the first number, like I can +5, so I can normally get here 58 operational air wings. What is more traditional, what you can see is like this one. What will, still not working. But sooner or later, sometimes this airframe will drop out from 30 to 29 or 28, and then they will go to reserve. I don't know, sometimes this happens, sometimes this will not happen, and sometimes they switching between reserve and active, but I roughly calculate with 53 plus 5 is 58 active airframes I can get out of this carrier. More important is, I have now here a full carrier, and I have only 2 partly air wings. So you can see I use for 2 carriers 4 partly air wings, means at the end I use 1 air wing and a third to fill up 2 fleet carriers. And if you do this non-stop and always optimize all your system and all your air wings, you end like this, what is here. So you can see here Kaga. Kaga the problem is now, up to now, I have still a lot of air wings. They are locked in their size. I cannot change. And sometimes the change make no sense because they are only locked. You cannot change them. So, but you can also here see what is also possible. You have the original air wing I cannot change. This is the other one I cannot change. Not now. And then I add some other from my other carrier air wing. This is a C company. It's only a third. And here you can see it's 25 because I cannot get more in this. If I push here more in this air wing, they will always drop to reserve. So sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not working. Maybe there's a mechanic behind it, I don't know up to now. But this is the maximum I can get out of this, 25. But this is, again, 72 plus 7 is 79. 80 is working but not stable. And I think one more airframe is not so important. But again, I have here now more active airframes on the carrier, so I get more striking power or defense power, and I save airframes or air wings because this is only a third. So you can also do this. Akagi, Shukaku is here. Shukaku also have a similar layout. 70, 27, 27, and here is this still maintenance. So this, if you do this again and again and again, you can simply save air wings and put this air wings somewhere at mainland Japan or wherever you want and let pilots train. This is how you create more training capacity, and this will allow you to empty your training pool from pilots. Because the other rule of the game is more or less stupid pilots with less experience or less skills are more easily to learn something. Don't ask me why, it's simply a game mechanic. So it is not even bad to call in half-finished flight school students, because at least in this version 26B you don't have flight school accidents. At 27 you have this kind of problem. So I think they did this on purpose, that you don't put stupid pilots in training and then they never have an accident, and then they can also achieve everything, and even sometimes faster. Have you anything else? Where is Akagi? I don't know. You have 4 carriers, but I cannot see Akagi. Ah, yeah, Akagi is here. So Akagi is here, and again, here's 81, but in reality you can make 90 out of this. But more is not possible. But this also means that the Americans, they have, I think, 90 carrier size. They can make 108, 107, and you must play the allies to find out. So, and here I put other air wings. And sometimes you have a very strange combination, because this is still this before June, July, because I'm still waiting for July, then I can reform here everything again. So I have here, I put here 18, 18, 18, 25. Normally I could put here 2 more inside, but the carrier is now already full because I'm at 89. And then I have a smaller air wing with 10. So I could make this one 8 and the other one 27, but I don't like to make the air wing too small. So I try to, if I optimize the carriers, I try to get the balance at maybe 20 to 15 or something like this. In this case, it's 25 to 10. Good. So that is the carrier air wing stuff. The other big change where you can create even more capacity is float planes. And for this I have more or less, I always use Hiroshima for this. Here's my Japanese float plane base, but everyone can do this on his own. But I have here my float planes, and you can resize them always to 27 with the Scout Cruiser. So you change them all to 27, and then I try to give them as many airframes as possible, but that is even more complicated. And some they are special, so they have other rules, so I will not change them. but normally 27. And then always give them pilots. And then they can make Navy search, Navy training, whatever. And then you have like this. I have air wing here. They are all not 70, so they are Navy search. Or I have them on Navy search at 70, but this is a commander, so they have other skill. Then I go for Navy attack. Float planes, I always give the order Navy search, Navy attack. Then they are good for Navy search. They can maybe attack something. I still don't know if the attack on a Navy search mission, what you can see sometimes, like there's a dropping the bomb and then reported hit. If this skill will be related to your Navy attack skill. I'm not so sure, or if it's really only related to Navy search. But anyway, because Navy search will again, like always, if you have the first skill ready, you get a defense of around 60. You can see here. So these pilots are more or less at all at 70. They have roughly defense of 50 to 60 somewhere, but not 70. In training, go only up to 70, 71. So I have a second skill to train, and this is Navy bombardment. So mainly to get the defense up, but also if I have Navy search and Navy bombing done, I could make out of this a dive bomber pilot. I could make out of this also a torpedo bomber pilot. I must only train him then torpedo attacks, but then he know all the other stuff. Or if it's a really emergency situation with defense of 70, you could also say, okay, train him air and make out of this maybe a multi-role fighter pilot. Because, and this is why I like to train my Navy pilots or all kind of pilots, fighter pilots, always Navy attack, is related to the A6M8 is normally a fighter bomber. You can carry 250 kilogram bombs. This is fighter bomber. And I'm not so sure more with Oscar, but I think Oscar is also 250 kilograms. This is also a fighter bomber. Maybe it's a one-way fighter bomber because they don't have the ability to survive this. A Tojo is not really a fighter bomber. 100 kilo is too little to really have an impact. This is a true interceptor. But if you later change then your pilots to the Frank, again, 250 kilogram bombs. Maybe they cannot penetrate armor deck or something like this, but they can APs, cargo ships, light cruiser destroyers. They will hit and make a damage. You can also turn this around and ask, what else you want to train. If you don't want, this is Navy search for sure. Navy attack make for me sense because it's Navy always. What else do I want to take? Ground attack make no sense for me. Sweep you could do because then you train the air skill. Or submarine patrol. Some air wings I also have on submarine, not many, but I don't know more. So I have here some air wings training for submarine hunting, but not the great number. So this is important to do this early on. I don't say at day one. It's not the number one priority, but I would do it in December and then start your training. If you start early on, you have early on pilots and then you can replace pilots. Because for Japan, in the long run, pilots are the problem and not airframes. So if you have skillful pilots in backup, you can hold out longer. So, and I have a Navy search play or training base here. You can see here 261 aircraft training. But you can, I don't know, you cannot see the potential airframe. But there are some airframes here at least, or air wings. Then I have another training center, but not so big. It's now here in Singapore. You can see there's only a little here, but some. I have also in Balikpapan, in Surabaya. Here's a bigger airframe or training base. Training. Not all is training, but most is training. Because why not? Training is always important. And the other bigger hub is here in Nomaya. Only to show it. Here's also some I was not ready, or just I missed them, or I had no time, or whatever. Let me check. So this is 27, 27, 27, 27. Ah yeah, here. Here's the airing. I was not able to reform them. And here are some more. So there are still some I can still change. And one other rule. Okay. Now maybe related to this is the question, and where I get all this float plane airings. I mean, I get not, this is scenario 1, not scenario 2. So there's normally never enough. So where I get them all? Yeah. This is similar to, this is more or less exactly the same like with the carriers. What you do is you, let me try to find the, maybe the import. You go to your heavy cruisers or light cruisers, and then you find your airwings, you reform them to the size you need, you break them up and send them to different cruisers. A cruiser have a capacity, most of the heavy cruisers have 3 or 2 or 5. So I reform this to 9, break them to 3 pieces, and then have 3 times 3. Means I can fill up 3 heavy cruisers with airframes. Because most of these heavy cruisers starting with 2 airwings, 1 and 2 or something like this, I get out of, if I have them 3 cruisers, I have normally 6 airframes or airwings, but I only need 1 to fill up all the 3 cruisers. I have then 5 airwings backup for training. And this 5, I can change each to 27. So I will have, I create more or less nearly 150 training pool capacity with these 3 cruisers. But there's only one small, this is game related, this 100% is not every air wing is possible to split float plane. That is hard coded, you cannot change it. But you must check, so sometimes you can change the size of the air wing always, but some air wings cannot be broken in ABC company. They must be together. There are some rules, and then you must try to find these air wings you can break, and normally break them down and put them on the cruisers, and others you cannot break. Let me see if I can find them. Ah yeah, this one you use for training, like this one. Or I can compare it. This guy, 27 can break. All before you can always break them. You can all break. But this guy you cannot break. This one you cannot break. This one you can break. This one you cannot break. So I was always thinking if there's maybe a reason, because this one is maybe it must be removed, and I was thinking okay, maybe it have something to do with the remove stuff, but others like this one you not remove, so you cannot break them. I simply give up and say okay, it is hard coded in the game, some can break, some cannot break. And this is normally this is really of course micromanagement 100%, and maybe this is only German engineering thinking that you can optimize this to the last ditch and percentage, but you can really create a lot of training pool capacity out of this, and you can optimize your setting of your air wings and airframes and all of this. Yeah, okay, this is I think first in the only maybe one small mini other topic is the roof fighter. Because there was always sometimes a discussion if is related to A&D. So maybe first, why I always go for roof fighter? Roof fighter. Now I finished already the A&D of roof. The roof fighter is now already online. So I always set up, you can make this with 1 factory or 10 factories, and in my case it was now 12 factories or tools. I set to 0 ND tool line. So I start with roof, because roof is finished in April, because we are now in April 42. So I was not able, but this was also not the intention, to boost and get the roof fighter faster. I only did this because if the time the airframe will arrive is early on, it's much easier to get a hit on this, because this is always a dice roll hit and not automatically. So I get this capacity faster to 30. And once I is 30, I always switch it immediately to the A6M5. So I take roof, because roof is earlier compared to the A6M3, that is June, and this one is not carrier capable. Keep in mind, this is a land-based fighter. So the carrier capable is the A, it is end of the year. So that is already a little slower to catch. And this is really hard to catch, because this is like Tojo or Oscar. This is 1 month at least later than you can finish the 30. So this is why I start with roof. But the next question is now, why A6M5? I mean, of course, now you can say, you can go A6M5 or any, or yeah, first A6M5 is the next after roof. So I can get this for free. I really don't pay anything for this. I can push this always 1 step ahead. I mean, of course, I can now go to the B and C. Here, B and C. And then is 8 the last in the line. I always go A6M5, and then I would normally jump directly to the A6M8. Why? I mean, yeah. Now I could say why I don't go from roof directly to this one, of course step by step, so that I don't damage the factory. I want the A6M5 firstly A, because if I push this now, I can get it ready in June, latest in July. So this is the same time that if the Allies getting much more and better 4F4, no, 4-3-4, no, 4, no, F3F4, I think. The Wildcat, the greater numbers. I mean, the A6M2 is still okay, but the A6M5 is much, I would say really better than the F3F4. So I get I keep the technology advantage. So this is the first reason. The second reason is if I check the roof fighter, and I go to upgrade, you get this display. This is a float plane fighter. And there are only 2 float plane fighter for Japan. I think the others have never anyone. You have the roof and you have the Rex. The Rex is better than the roof, of course. But in between, and they're always linked, is the A6M5. Once I saw this the first time, I had immediately the idea, oh, that's opened many opportunities. What you can now do is, once you have the A6M5, you change this airing to A6M5. What is carrier based? You put this on the carrier, then you can resize this up to 90, break it down, and change it back to a roof, or later to a Rex. No, only think about this. Good. And yeah, this is really only the A6M5. You need the A6M5, not the 8, nothing else. So only this one can do this. Good. So, but and on top on this, or related to this, is the problem that the A6M2 is not in the direct line of upgrading. So this factories, this was also why I don't upgrade the A6M5 higher than 60. Of course, related to your losses. Every industry, every upgrade I invest in this 0 is more or less dead. I will nearly maybe never ever be able to upgrade this factory, because the next in line would be this Sinbuko, a fighter bomber, but a useless fighter bomber. And this is a 44 engine. So maybe in 44 I can switch this. But in 44, all kind of zeros, A6 design is outdated. At that time you need the A7. So I simply say, if I upgrade here the zeros, it is the purpose is really only for this short moment of early wartime. Because in June I want the M5, but I will not be able to upgrade this factory to the M5. If I do this, I break it down and I can start from zero. So I will not do it. What I will do is I upgrade 2 other factories. I use the airframes I don't produce, so I don't need more. And I run this one with maximum repair capacity. I go with unlimited number. So if I reach here maybe roof of 60, doesn't matter. Then in June, I will have the M5, and then I can switch this one for free to M5. This means from one moment to the next, I have immediately a capacity of maybe 100 M5 output per month. This is also, I would say, a dead end, because after this it's over. I will not come from M5 to M8. So once I am done with this, I will start R&D with M8. Once the M8 is ready, I will change the M2 to M8. Of course this will break down and I start from zero, and this needs time. But this is one times, I think this is still the better solution. The other way around is forget the M5 and go directly to M8. But then you will produce the roof factories only for roofs and nothing else, because you cannot upgrade. Or if you want to upgrade this for free, then you must wait to 44, 45. But at that time it's simply far too late. Goody. Good, if you have more questions or special requests, then let me know, and happy Easter. See you next time, take care, bye bye.